And demons are nothing else than highly evolved, perfect spirit beings like you and me, who have just fallen so deeply that they no longer have energy on their own. And the only way to survive is to draw energy from other beings. And that's why they are basically possessing other people so that they can draw the energy, usually from the neck up. They draw the energy, they live through these people, and they instigate negativity through these people because fights, struggles, wars create lush energy. And lush energy is the energy these demons live off. So these demons can possess human beings. I have a whole video on that one, on spirit possession. And they can influence the people that they do negative things, that they are angry, that they fight continuously with other people, because that creates a negative energy, which that energy lives with. These are the one type. The other type are earthbound spirits, which are souls after they died, have not moved into the spiritual world. They are so attached to this world, to the earth, and to their past lifestyle, which was usually vices like alcohol, sex, drugs, whatever that was, and they don't want to move on. They say, the only way I know life is here on earth, and they refuse to go up into the spiritual worlds. So they're stuck, and we have got countless millions, billions of souls roaming this planet Earth to continue, and their main goal is to continue living out their vices. And when they see somebody having a human being, alive, having a similar vice in them, or the tendency for that vice, that like attracts like, it's all vibration, they can cling onto them and make them go into do the vice on them. For instance, they suddenly inject ideas, oh, I need another drink, I need another drug. And the person thinks it's their own thought. It's not their own thought. The thought comes from the possessing spirit, from the earthbound spirit. And then they drink the alcohol, and that energy of that alcohol is exactly what these earthbound spirit want. And the same applies to sex, to porn, to drugs, etc., etc. So it's not the lush energy they are after, but they are more the highs you get from various vices. And they live through they need the physical body to enjoy them. And they use our physical body to re-enjoy and experience their vices. So these are the two kind of spirit possessions we are talking about here. And it all depends on our own vibration. They can only affect us if we have like-minded thought patterns, behavior patterns, vices in ourselves. If we do not have them, they have no ways of, they are not interested in us. They don't see us as anything of interest to us. But if we have got tendencies in this, or even have the vice and do these things, we must be careful of not becoming their victim, and they are using it. And it's not only one spirit, earthbound spirit, sometimes many, many, 3, 4, 5, 10 spirits are all attaching themselves to our neck. And like grapes, Gabriele mentions, they're hanging on these people. And they're just using these people through their own, for their own benefit. That is very real. And there are many books written by doctors, by physicians about spirit removal. There's a whole business of spirit removal, how to do this.
Well, hi guys, I'm here with a very interesting gentleman, Hans Wilhelm. How do you pronounce your second name, Hans? Excuse me.
Wilhelm.
Wilhelm,
Yeah,
excuse me.
thank you.
Thank you. And Hans is a German-American writer, children's book author, and illustrator and artist. He has written and or illustrated over 200 books, mostly for children. They have been translated in more than 30 languages and have won numerous international awards and prizes. Many of them have been made into animated television series. Presently, there are over 42 million books by Hans in print. Whoa, that's incredible. Some of his best-known books include I'll Always Love You, Bunny Trouble series, Tyrone the Horrible series, Waldo series, and the Noodles books. Hans was born in Germany, where he grew up. Following his studies of art and business, he moved for 12 years to South Africa, where he worked, painted, and was an acting member of a satirical theatre group. His writing career began when he embarked on a 2-year trip around the world, where he lived in Bali, Spain, England, and many other places. He's also host of the, he's also host to the Life Explained video series, which aims to visually explain a number of spiritual phenomena from his personal point of view. And that's what I'm going to be talking to Hans about today. I came across Hans' YouTube channel, and he's got some fantastic videos on it. Very, very insightful, very interesting videos. And I wouldn't be able to tell you one in particular because really every one of them is so interesting. I came across one the other day actually about the 7 spheres, I think, of Satan. You put it, what was it? The
The,
7.
the demonic, yeah, the demonic laws.
Yeah, that way.
With the,
And his channel is full of these great insights and videos. But I'm going to be, maybe we can touch upon that actually later on, Hans. But I'm going to be asking you some questions about Jesus, the true nature of Christ, and the nature of death, and maybe something to do about prayer as well, how we pray. So, first of all, Hans, how are you?
Thank you very much, Mick. Thank you for inviting me. Delighted to be with you and excited to see what comes up because we never know what we will touch on and what we will explore together.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can I ask you, Hans, who was Jesus? I've asked that to a few of my guests now on this channel. Who was Jesus? What was the real nature of Jesus? Who do you think he was?
Well, this is what I'm sharing here comes from material that has been channeled to us for the last 50 years through a woman in Germany, Gabriele, and she actually channeled also Christ. If we use the word channel, she was more a prophet, the emissary of light, and Christ. And Christ had said in the Bible, "I have still a lot more to tell you, but only when the Spirit of wisdom comes, you are ready, and then I will." I don't know exactly how he phrased it, but he couldn't tell everything to his disciples because they didn't have the consciousness at that time to fully understand all the teachings he was going to give them. But he said there will come someone who will give the information. And that teaching has come over the last 50 years. This is a very thick book which Christ himself gave. It's called The Great Cosmic Teaching of Jesus of Nazareth to his apostles and disciples who could understand them. So this is here, this continuation of his teachings and in great, great depth. And who was Jesus? Jesus was the physical, the bodily incarnation of whom we call Christ. We have to remember that I remind myself that everything is energy. You and I are basically energy. There's nothing else than energy and vibration, as we know from Tesla, we know from Einstein. And this includes also God's Spirit. God's Spirit, from where everything came, from every creation was developed, evolved from, is nothing but energy. These are the 7 energy forces, which we can call them, and I covered them in my video on the demons earlier. But the energies, these energies, qualities, which we can call God's Spirit, incarnated as the person we call Jesus here on planet Earth. Why was that so? And I think that is where the interesting point comes from. In my videos, I mention many times that we are all a perfect being. We all come from the absolute reality, which is a divine love, which is harmony, unity, which is absolutely perfect existence, continuously evolving, continuously expanding. A certain number of these pure spirit beings left the absolute reality a long, long time ago. The Bible, the scriptures, not only in the Bible, in other cultures as well, we call it the fall of angels. And this is where we are. We are basically that kind of group of angels who have left the absolute reality for our egoistic reasons. And there are many, we can talk about it, why this happens. I've made videos about that one. Fact is that you and I are living now in the temporary reality, not the absolute and the permanent reality, but the temporary reality. And in this reality, we have a certain phenomena. We have got cause and effect, which doesn't exist in the absolute reality because there is only the permanent now. Here we have cause and effect. We have got the polarity, the contrasts of right and wrong, black and white, and we have got the time. These are the 3 things which we have to deal with. And having fallen more and more away from the absolute love, which our original state of being is. We are now in this mess called human being life here, where we have got wars, we are fighting, lying, cheating, etc., and all the pain and suffering, which is karma, which is another subject we can talk about. But over time, these souls that left the absolute reality were always called back by God. It says, please come back to the absolute reality. You're making a mistake. And God has sent many, many prophets for thousands of years to these fallen angels. In our Bible, we have a few of them, from Abraham to Gabriel, a lot of them. We know of these, and they all taught the same thing: come back to life. They have got the 10 Commandments we were given, and then Christ gave us the Sermon on the Mount. Just by living these simple forms, we would automatically have returned to a higher vibration, because it's all vibration and energy. So why does Jesus or Christ came? The fall was happening more and more, and it was the vibration of the chakras, our energy centers, was slowing more and more the further we removed ourselves from the absolute reality. And there was coming a point when those chakras, these energy centers in our bodies, which are seven, mainly one, were reversing. And if that would take place, then all of evolution, all of creation would unravel. So this was a very important point to make a stop to that. So Christ incarnated as Jesus to planet Earth, taught the path back to God through the Sermon on the Mount, but people didn't listen, didn't quite understand, and eventually he was crucified, which was not the plan of his incarnation. But when he was crucified, he gave part of his, what we call his inheritance, of this God spark, of this God energy, into every soul incarnated on planet Earth and in the lower four astral spheres. Why? Because that is now implanted in every human being in the center of, in the heart center, close to the heart center, and it stopped, it prevented the reversal of the chakras. So through his gift, his what we call Christ spark, he stopped the devolution of creation. This is a very complex thing. I'm not good with words. I'm better with drawings, but I hope everybody can still follow me there. And
No,
because it's a
that's
huge
perfect.
subject, basically. So what
Mm.
he did come, he came here and gave every human being this Christ spark, whether you're Muslim, whether you are Hindu, whatever, it doesn't matter. These things don't matter. This Christ spark is this energy in us, which we can always go to. That's why he is a comforter, the healer. He heals through that. And Christ is, because he is the God Spirit, is omnipresent. And that's why wherever we are, there is Christ. We can also say God. It's the same thing at that level. It's the same spirit. And that spirit is everywhere. So we always can connect and speak to Christ wherever we are, because he is not somewhere up there in the ethereal kind of heavens. He is omnipresent.
Okay, sorry, you're breaking up. Can you hear me?
Christ, we can also connect with God. We've got the God spark as well. And wherever we are, we're having these tremendous direct connections to divinity, which can help us in difficult situations and when we are sick and when we are ill.
Mhm.
That was pretty long. I'm sorry I didn't
No,
lose too
that's
many of the
that.
audiences.
Hans, that was absolutely very insightful, and that was spot on. Excuse me now, you cut off there for a second for some reason, so hopefully it was only a minor glitch, but it was just for a second or two. However, if there's a time where I pause or something, just bear with me. I don't know if it's your side or my side. I think my Wi-Fi is all right, but anyways, and
I checked my one as well.
yeah, my minor detail. It's
At
okay.
300. So yeah,
It
yeah.
should be okay. Going back to your previous point, Hans, when you said that Jesus or Christ, when he was crucified, that it wasn't in the plan. Now that differs a lot to, let's say, somebody from a denomination like Catholicism or one of the Protestant denominations, where they said it was very much in the plan of Jesus's mission on earth. How do you look at that? Why do you think it wasn't in the plan? What caused it not to be in the plan?
Well, he saw that the people were not turning around when he taught it, and that was, and then he basically caused his own crucifixion. It's a little bit more complicated, but the main thing, and I think that but the difference is that a lot of people believe that Christ died for our sins. And he made very, very clear in all his teaching, he says, I did not die for your sins because I couldn't die for your sins. It would make no sense at all. If I would have taken away from the karma from you and everybody else, you would not learn your lesson. The
Hmm.
karma is something that you have created yourself. You will reap the consequences, as I've said, you're sowing and reaping. The consequences are not punishment. They are there for you to grow. If I would suddenly take everything away, all the karma, all the negativity that you have created from lifetime to lifetime, do you really believe that people would suddenly all be lovingly kissing each other and being happily going into heaven? No. Within no time, they will fall back into the old patterns. It
Hmm.
would make no sense. Furthermore, if I would take the karma away from you, I would take my will onto you, and I can't do this. The creation of your karma is your will, and I have no power over your will. That would be against the law of free will.
Hmm.
So the idea that Christ died for our sins is a story that was invented by the churches. The reason is quite clear, because that would create followers to the church. The church organization is a business. It has nothing to do with Christ's teachings. And it just is interested in having followers and people who believe it, trust it, and let the priest do it for us. The priest giving absolution for somebody makes no sense. It says no human being can take away the karma from another being. That it does not make sense. And he speaks elaborately about that one as well. So this whole teachings, what we are grow up with from our Christian kind of organized Christian teachings, makes no sense when we really look deeply into it. We also, the teachings of reincarnation, which Christ gave at his time already, which we find also in the Bible, of which I made a video as well, he speaks over and over again. We come back over and over again. And this again, the churches have taken out of the teachings purposely, because if you believe you have only this one lifetime, I better become a good Catholic or a good Protestant or whatever it is, because I need the church to save my soul. But when we believe in reincarnation and know about reincarnation, we understand that the church has nothing to do with it. I myself can only purify my own soul through forgiveness, through undoing the negative karma, to making amends and no longer doing the negativity. It's a very simple path. And he spoke over and over about it in the Ten Commandments, in the Sermon on the Mount.
Hans, where did he say about reincarnation? I know he mentioned Elias, that about John the Baptist, but where else does he speak about reincarnation?
You got me there with this quotes. I have that in my video on Christ taught reincarnation.
Hmm.
It is there. There are several quotes in the Bible. I think there's over 100 in the hints of the Bible of
Hmm.
reincarnation there. But it was purposely taken out by King Leo, by an emperor, by an Roman emperor on purpose. It wasn't even taken out by the Pope. Pope
Hmm.
Vigelagus was against it, and
Hmm.
the Roman Empire. I forgot his name at the moment. He threw him into prison for 10 years. And
Hmm.
then at the synagogue in Constantinople, that it was signed into law. It was done on the order of a Roman emperor, not by the church. And he did it as well to control the people. That was the main motivation. In my video, Christ taught reincarnation, which I did 10 years ago, so I don't know the details all that much
Sure, sure,
more.
sure.
You can
Mhm.
read it, and it's only a very short video, but you
Wh-
can see it there.
What Bible translation do you think is the most accurate? Which?
Christ speaks, the divine verse, he says, the Bible is a library. It's not a book, it's a
Mhm.
library. And I made a video about it, how accurate it is. It was translated by Jerome into Latin, and Jerome wrote to the Pope at the time and says, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. I can't combine all these scriptures, and these were all copies. There was no original scripture from the disciples available because they all contradicted each other. People would think I'm a liar, a cheater. In my video on Is It True? Can you trust the Bible? I go into great detail. So the Bible has a lot of stories in it and a lot of made up. They're manipulated. I think several thousand changes made by Jerome himself. But
Wow.
the main thing is says there are only two things from the Bible to take from, really. These are the Ten Commandments and the Sermon on the Mount. The
Mhm.
rest, read it for entertainment, but don't go by quote, because it has been fuddled with so often by so many people. Recently, they changed the Ten Commandments, like you shall not murder in some of the Bibles, and said you shall not kill, so that that the government or have got a chance to send you to war and kill someone else. So it's only murdering which is not allowed, but killing is okay. So they change continuously, those Bibles. And as you mentioned, there are many, many different forms of Bibles, and each one is different. I remember a long time ago, I was here with the Quakers in a Bible study group. That was long before I did this path here. And just for fun, I brought my German Bible along as well. And it was seeming like reading two different books, comparing the text. I couldn't believe how different these two versions were. So I would not put all my trust into the Bible. I would be very careful. My video on the Bible itself is actually very funny. It has some good jokes about it, etc. Why these things are little not quite don't make sense, like God doing all the orders which God gave and so on. Anyway, look it up. It's a fun little movie, and I would not put my trust into that book to live my daily life by each quote and argue about it. You cannot study God. You can only experience God. And that comes through living by the Ten Commandments, the Sermon on the Mount, or in one line, you can call it the Golden Rule. If we just stick to the Golden Rule, do unto others as you want them do unto you, or do not unto others as you do not want them unto you. By that simple rule, the world within one generation would be paradise if everybody
Mhm.
lived by that.
Mhm. Hans, did Jesus resurrect?
He resurrected not in flesh, but he was, of course, as a spirit being. He was guiding his disciples afterwards. Yes, he did not resurrect in flesh, but he did resurrect in spirit.
Mhm.
And that was and this disciple at them communicated with him and had a conversation with him. That's not how I see him as flesh resurrection.
Mhm. Would you think so that that's another important aspect of the Bible is along with the Sermon on the Mount and the Ten Commandments? Would you think that would be another very strong tenet of belief?
I don't know what benefit you have by believing that he reappeared in the flesh.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't see if people like to believe in it. Anybody can believe what they want. I try not. This is
I
the one thing, Mike, I want to be very sure. Whatever I say is my personal belief. I have
sure, yeah.
zero interest to convince anybody.
Oh, yeah,
Because
absolutely.
because I'm very careful not to interfere with the free will of other people. If they wish to
Mhm.
believe in the Bible, in Christ taking away their sins, that's absolutely fine. It may
Mhm.
work for them at the moment. It may not be right for them to believe what I believe, because they still may have to go through some experiences so that they come to the other new consciousness through personal experiences. So I'm not trying to convince anybody for whatever I say is the right and the only way. I can only share this works for me. I've worked with it for many, many years. I've seen the changes in my own life. That for
Mhm.
me is the proof of the pudding.
Yeah, no, I'm genuinely interested in knowing what you believe and how you believe it and how you've come to that belief. That was the whole reason I asked you that question. For me, anyways, when I look at the resurrection, and for example, I've had a couple of guests on this show about talking about the Shroud of Turin, and the Shroud of Turin is a artifact that is beyond explanation. Science just simply cannot explain it. And for me, that's I don't want to say proof, but it's an article of faith. It's an article of it's something that pushes me to the to not even believing, but knowing that something strange happened to this man called Jesus, that something strange happened after he died to leave that indelible mark on that particular shroud. Who were the early Christians, Hans, in your opinion?
Oh, the early Christians knew about his teachings. They were not, for instance, we're talking about death and so on. They knew of reincarnation. Don't forget, a lot of Jews at the time also knew about reincarnation. It was not a new concept. We have a lot of Jewish people in today's society. What are they called? The Shabbats, I forget the name. They all believe in reincarnation. It's one of the many fundamental Jewish beliefs. So it wasn't unusual to talk about reincarnation at his time. So they believed in reincarnation. They also knew that we come here to undo our karma as a main reason for our incarnation. And when one of them died and went back to the spiritual world, it was more a happy occasion because they were relieved from the burden, from the struggle of the human life. So they also knew very well about the whole cycle of life and lived differently because they knew about the repeated life form. And they understood if somebody was rich, poor, powerful, sick, whatever, it was not by some capricious God who gave it to them until I want this one rich, this one poor, etc. It was self-created through our own karma. And that implies also the tremendous power we have, that we can actually create our life, not only this life, but also our future life. Because the life we are presently experiencing is nothing else than a creation from our previous words, actions, feelings, thoughts, and whatever beliefs that came together. And we are basically on rewind. We are rewinding the film that we have created earlier. From day to day, from moment to moment, we are reaping what we have sown in an earlier stage, either in this lifetime or in previous lifetime. So our entire life, which surround us, the people around us, are basically self-created by us from previous lifetimes. So that is something to consider, that we are actually the own creator, the film directors of our own film, of our own life.
What is reality, Hans? What is the true nature of reality?
Well, I touched on it earlier. I believe there are two major realities. One is the temporal reality in which we live to undo our karma, to return back to the absolute reality, which is the pure heavens, which is harmony, peace, love, and continuously evolution and creation. But then there is also the other important reality, our ego reality. That is the reality that surrounds us. That's like a cocoon. That's where we see all our own beliefs, our own passions, our own judgments, which we have about everything in the life, are basically reflected in our aura. And we're looking through that and see the whole world around us through these colored glasses, which our aura is. So if we see somebody does something negative out there, basically, and we react emotionally to it, it's basically something within ourselves. We basically only respond to things which comes from us. We are sending it out. We are getting upset about it, but we are getting upset about our own stuff, which has not been resolved. That is a form of reality. That is a form of our ego reality. And that's the ego reality we basically are dealing with from moment to moment, according to our emotional response to all the various situations which life gives us.
Does hell exist, Hans?
Yes, yes, hell does exist. A soul, a person who has been extremely negative, destructive, a killer, murderer, intention, and so on, out of whatever reason, but has been really at what we can call evil, has created a certain vibration about his soul, a soul vibration, has lowered the vibration to a very low grade. And after our death, we are attracted to attract like spheres. So a low vibrating soul will be attracted to a low vibrating spiritual realm. And in that spiritual realm, you are basically meeting other souls of similar vibration. So the one devil meets a lot of other devils around it. And that can be something what we can call hellish. It can be hell. It can be very destructive, very negative, and very yeah. It's an awful place to be because we are basically meeting our thought forms that we have created in our life here, and it can be a very isolating, painful kind of experience. But there is no eternal hell, no eternal damnation. even in these very dark spheres, the astral fields, the lowest astral fields, continuously and the spirit beings of higher vibration come and try to help these souls to get out of it. Because what are they are experiencing is their own thought pattern. They are locked in their own negative thought patterns. And not until somebody touches him on the shoulder and says, look, get out of it, this thought pattern. Come, you are a highly evolved spirit being. You are a perfect angelic being, divine being. Let's concentrate on that. These souls will not wake up otherwise. So these souls are continuously helped and try to be guided by other higher evolved spirit beings in the hell, or what we call hell, or in the very demonic negative spheres. But they do exist, these spheres, and they are our own creations, our own thought forms, which have taken on forms in the astral worlds and which we are facing there.
I want to show you this. There's a chapter in this book by, I'm sure you know this book. He's another German guy. Vistas of Infinity, Hugen Zoe. Am I pronouncing that right?
Sive, Jürgen Sive, yeah.
So you can
I was
see
just going to show you a different, his new workbook. Did you have his new book?
No, I don't know.
Uh,
Which book is that?
you can take this out. Yes, I guess.
Yeah.
Here we have got Jürgen
Oh,
speaking.
okay. That's the one with all the pictures in it, right? Yeah.
Exactly. That is the picture. And that shows pictures of hell
Yeah.
and so
Wow.
on. That is, which is quite amazing. And whatever he says in this book, for the most part, I 100% agree with ever experience. So these are really hellish pictures of he shows so that people understand that these things really exist. And the way he describes it, it's quite amazing. So I like Jürgen Sieve's
That's
work.
that's that's on Elysium Unveiled, right? That's the
Yes,
name of it. Yeah.
Alicia, yeah,
Mhm.
yes.
There's a chapter in this book I want to ask you about. It's called The Paradise of a Suicide Bomber. And in that chapter, he describes where a suicide bomber goes to after he dies, and it is hellish the way I read the chapter twice, and the chapter is one of the most descriptive chapters I've ever read about hell in my life. Not that I've read a lot of chapters about hell, but this one really stuck with me. It was horrifying, but it's interesting because what you just said there, there's a bit where where the guy is basically drowning in the representations of the people that he killed, and there's a guy that comes towards him in a white robe, and the robe is all dirty from all the ash and stuff that's around this hellish environment. And this guy in the white robe is a helper, I guess a spirit guide, trying to help the people in that environment to escape, but he gives this impression that it's very, very difficult to get them to see the light and to come out of there, because the sheer horror, the sheer grotesqueness of what they did is just too much. It weighs them down, and they keep going back into this sort of pit. Hellish, hellish. Did you read that chapter, or is it?
I must have read it. I forgot about that
Yeah, yeah.
particular one, but I think you touched on something very important. Why is he stuck in that hell? Is often, we have that in suicide quite commonly, is the guilt.
Hmm.
That is, I don't deserve to be saved. I don't deserve that a higher evolved being, like the angel who is trying to help us, should take care of me. And the guilt can keep a suicide person who has committed, not a suicide bomber, I'm talking somebody who commits suicide and realize what is absolutely disastrous, the action he has undertaken by cutting his life short, feels so guilty after that on the other side, on the spiritual side, that he is not willing to accept the divine help offered to him. And they're hiding themselves, and they can't keep themselves separated from that help to a large degree. And you mentioned that something, that he is not quite willing to accept the help because he thinks he doesn't deserve it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's a heavy thought to bear, thinking that.
Suicide is a very heavy subject, and anybody who ever thinks about suicide, I invite them to watch my video on that subject. It covers a little bit from the spiritual realm. Yeah, it is something very heavy. It's not that there is not help on the other side. It is there, and the people and the souls will be taken care of. But it's better not to do it because the consequences can be very, very serious. And um, we just sort of have to come back and do the same lesson again. Do we really want to do that? If we were cut our life short, we
Mhm.
have not taken the full class, and eventually we have to take the full class. So we might as well do it now.
If I do something throughout my day, if I say something bad to somebody, or if I hurt them in some way, whether it's small or big, obviously the what a suicide bomber does, like that's in a whole different category, or maybe it's not, I don't know. But if I act in an inappropriate way towards someone and I hurt that person, and that person's life has been damaged in some way, sometimes you can say something to somebody and that person might carry what you say in a very negative way, and that could affect that person for the rest of their lives potentially. So will I have to make amends for that when I pass on to the next life? Will that follow me in my karma? How do I rectify that? How do I see that? How do I?
Mike, the most important thing which I understand is the intention. What you have said to the person, what was your true intention? Where was your intention to hurt the person, or was your intention to show off? Was your intention to just to try to help, but the other person may have misunderstood it and may have done this wrong decisions in life? And thus, I think the main key in karma is the intention. What was the honest intention for you, why you said it or did it? That is how our karma is majorly measured. I give the example of people killing in war. If you go out and murder your neighbor because you want to rob him of his wealth, it's a very different story than if the government tells you you go to war whether you like it or not, and you have to shoot someone else you never have met before, and you are forced to do that, and you kill somebody that way. These are both killings, but both killings are judged karmically very differently because of the intention behind it. So the intention is something we have to look firstly. Of course, our consequences, and I make a video on how our thoughts alone can kill another person, and they are like weapons, like rockets onto another person, and the person can do something negative out of it, and we are co-responsible about it. But again, because I had a negative thought. My intention was already negative because I hate that colleague. I really think she is an awful person, etc. This negative thought goes out, hits the person, my colleague. And if the colleague has also negativity in herself, like attracts like, that thought can enter her mind, her brain, and can create another negative thought out of which she then may hit another person or say something very bad, etc. And then I'm karmically related to that, whatever she does.
Mhm.
But again, it started with a negative thought on from me before. So our thoughts can have a very negative chain reaction. And we are co-responsible to whatever other people do because of our negative thoughts, not only what we say or what we do.
Mm.
It's quite heavy, I know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering, so if, let's say, I have a negative thought. Sorry for I'm going on with this, but
No, no,
I really would like
no.
to get your insight into this. Let's say I have a negative thought. I act on that negative thought. My intention is to say something to somebody to cut that person down in some way just because I have a negative thought or feeling. And I do so. And that person hears what I said and is offended by that and goes off about their day, and they take it out on their husband or wife or kids later on or something. It affects somebody else indirectly. Okay. So let's say a year from now, I feel sorry about that, right? I genuinely repent of having done that, but I cannot find that person to say sorry to. And that person will go on for the rest of their lives looking back at me, looking back at that encounter as something that was negative for them, right? Whereas a year from then, I had moved on, right? And I had been genuinely sorry. Does that still carry the karma? because that person is still going around with that negative karma, that negative feeling about me, even though years back I felt sorry about doing that thing, but I cannot find that person to say sorry to. Is it enough for me to say sorry to God, to say sorry to the universe, to exhibit that sort of repentance? Is that enough?
In a way, yes. That is exactly what Christ taught us, particularly when people, for instance, have died and we realize we have been an awful person to that person. What do we do with that soul in the spirit world whom we cannot connect anymore directly? Christ said, "Come to me, tell me that you are truly remorseful, sorry, and with remorse, that I'm sorry you recognize this mistake. I will then touch the soul of the other person, soften their heart so that they will be able to forgive you," which is very important because he, again, doesn't take it away from us. He can only help that forgiveness is taking place. And that's what he does. So whenever we have somebody whom we know we have hurt and we regret it, we are remorseful for it, go to Christ and ask him to please intervene here. Not directly to that person. He says, do not go directly to that person if he is dead, for instance, because you do not want to make a connection to that person. You do not want to link with them. Let them move on in the spiritual world wherever they are. It has nothing to do with you. And you should not make artificial ties to that person who has moved on. Let me do it. I will connect with that soul and soften his heart so that he will forgive you. And when he does, your karma will be dissolved. It's actually quite simple when one sees it this way. So you said the right thing. Go to God. It's God the same like Christ. It doesn't matter. And says, I am deeply sorry. What can you please help me that the other person forgives me? And I think that is something which many people are struggling with, particularly when the person has died, with parents who have died and they realize that they have got still unresolved issues with them. But it's never too late. But
Mhm.
don't connect directly with them if they are dead.
Hans, when you're saying that is don't connect to them directly when they're dead, that's interesting. So let me ask you, let me just shift a bit in the well, it's still related, it's still more or less the same topic. What about an exorcism? When somebody has somebody that is possessing them, a spirit that's possessing them, how does that person get connected to that negative spirit, right? I don't even think it has to be somebody, you might there are instances where somebody gets demonically possessed. What is that? What is happening there?
There are two types of demonic possession, we can call it. One are the negative demonic demons, we can say. And demons are nothing else than highly evolved, perfect spirit beings like you and me, who have just fallen so deeply that they no longer have energy on their own. And the only way to survive is to draw energy from other beings. And that's why they are basically possessing other people so that they can draw the energy, usually from the neck up. They draw the energy. They live through these people, and they instigate negativity through these people because fights, struggles, wars create lush energy, and lush energy is the energy these demons live off. So these demons can possess human beings. I have a whole video on that one on spirit possession. And they can influence the people that they do negative things, that they are angry, that they fight continuously with other people, because that creates a negative energy, which that energy lives for. These are the one type. The other type are earthbound spirits, which are souls after they died, have not moved into the spiritual world. They are so attached to this world, to the earth, and to their past lifestyle, which was usually vices like alcohol, sex, drugs, whatever that was, and they don't want to move on. They say the only way I know life is here on earth, and they refuse to go up into the spiritual worlds. So they're stuck, and we have got countless millions, billions of souls roaming this planet Earth to continue, and their main goal is to continue living out their vices. And when they see somebody having a human being, a life, having a similar vice in them, or the tendency for that vice, that like attracts like, it's all vibration, they can cling onto them and make them go into do the vice on them. For instance, they suddenly inject ideas, oh, I need another drink, I need another drug. And the person thinks it's their own thought. It's not their own thought. The thought comes from the possessing spirit, from the earthbound spirit. And then they drink the alcohol, and that energy of that alcohol is exactly what these earthbound spirit want. And the same applies to sex, to porn, to drugs, etc., etc. So it's not the louche energy they are after, but they are more the highs you get from various vices. And they live through they need the physical body to enjoy them. And they use our physical body to re-enjoy and re-experience their vices. So these are the two kind of spirit possessions we are talking about here. And it all depends on our own vibration. They can only affect us if we have like-minded thought patterns, behavior patterns, vices in ourselves. If we do not have them, they have no ways of, they are not interested in us. They don't see us as anything of interest to us. But if we have got tendencies in this, or even have the vice and do these things, we must be careful of not becoming their victim, and they are using it. And it's not only one spirit, earthbound spirit, sometimes many, many, 3, 4, 5, 10 spirits are all attaching themselves to our neck. And like grapes, Gabriele mentions, they're hanging on these people. And they're just using these people through their own, for their own benefit. That is very real. And there are many books written by doctors, by physicians about spirit removal. There's a whole business of spirit removal, how to do this. In my video on spirit possession, I mentioned all these books which at that time were available. Today there must be many, many more. There are also people who do spirit removal. I have an interview on my website with two people, one in England and one in America, who does spirit removal. And I've seen one of them doing this in videos, and it is quite an experience. It's not what does the Catholic Church call it?
Exorcism.
Exorcism. No, no, this is not exorcism. It's the opposite. Because the opposite means that the person I'm talking about he says, look, I know that they're not driving away the devils. They are basically speaking to another fallen angel who has lost his way and has become addicted and attached themselves to another human being. And he speaks to that being, the attaching being, the soul, the earthbound soul, with a very loving voice, very warm, welcoming, says, look, this is really what you want. You know you are wanted there. There is your grandmother, your parents waiting for you to come to the spiritual world. Can you let go of this one? So they do it in a very loving way, not like the Catholic Church, which with fire and brimstone and chase it away. But he has got videos on this one as well, how he does it. And I was really struck by this one. So yes, there is help for anybody who feels that way. It is pretty prevalent, unfortunately, and we of course have got lots of people in power who are used by the negative forces. And as you have alluded on my last video on the 7 demonic powers, my latest video, that covers it to a degree, how these people, the leaders in power, whether they're in politics, in religion, in the media, in science, and so on, are used by these negative forces for their own destructive goals.
So what would be the best way to remove that? You mentioned the person who did it in a very loving way. Can one do it by themselves, or do they have to seek other help from somebody
No, you
else?
don't have to see. In the books which I mentioned, I'm not an expert on spirit removal. I only mention this. Many of these physicians give instructions you can follow yourself of how to do that and mention the step by step of how to do that. So I would rather refer to the experts to do that. But it's quite possible to do it on your own. And in the books, it is clearly demonstrated of how to do that. And there are many videos on this as well. I think the YouTube is full of these stuff at the moment. But it's possible, yes. But I am not an expert on that one, and I will not give any advice on then how to do it, because I refer to the people who have been doing it for a long, long time.
Sure. Thank you, Hans. Hans, what or who is Lucifer?
Lucifer is one of I'm struggling because it's a big topic, and where do I
Mhm,
start? And I try to make it simple because, again, the best way to watch my video is called Lucifer's Rebellion.
mhm,
When creation was just done, when divinity, God, Father, you may want to call it, created this incredible absolute reality, this constantly evolving, constantly morphing light ether into these planets and galaxies, into the heavens. There are seven heavens of peace, harmony, and beauty. Um, One of the most beautiful angels, so-called, Satana, her name was, wanted to be like God. And being like God means being ever present. I mentioned earlier, Christ is ever present. That's why it's a vibration of Christ is the God Spirit is in all of us. But being ever present, she was not. Only God Spirit, Christ, to a degree, is ever present. But she wanted to be ever present. And her goal was to undo creation, God's creation, and start again from also the beginning, where she can then also be ever present. And she lured a lot of other highly evolved spirit beings. Some scriptures say a third of the angelic beings, and they all left the absolute reality, and that's what we call the fall of angel, to create her own reality. Uh, she changed, and the name wise later became Satan or Lucifer. The name became later because the moment the fall takes place, it was predominantly male oriented. Everything, that's why today's structure on our planet Earth, whether it's military, whether it's government, whether it's religions, particularly everything else is male oriented. And the woman is always regarded second class. Particularly in religion, there is not one major religion where the woman is equal to a man. She is always much, much less worth. This is a demonic teachings. And Lucifer, so Lucifer became sort of a male energy at that time. That is Lucifer basically who lured many of the spirit beings, and you and I are probably included in that lot, out of the absolute reality. And that's why we have got here the temporal reality, as I said earlier, with cause and effect, time, and as well as opposites, contrasts of good and evil and stuff like that, which
mhm.
doesn't exist in our true home.
So would you think that we're some of the fallen angels in a sense?
I would assume probably the way I still think and do sometimes I would say definitely there is a lot of fallen angel in me. But it could also be that you come from higher, some people come from higher spheres to help people. A
Mhm,
lot of people right now came and incarnated to help at this particular time where planet Earth is going to a very difficult period of earth changes and wars, etc., where a lot of suffering takes place. And there are a lot of light bringers, a lot of way showers have incarnated to help. Dolores Cannon has written several books on this one, The Third Wave, and so on, where she speaks and spoke a lot about these people whom she brought to previous lifetimes, how these souls have now incarnated to help in the birthing of the new earth. They are basically birth helpers here. And could be that you, with your YouTube channel, may help people. And if you are awakening other people to and making so that they make changes which are more loving, more caring, you're basically in a way assisting them to come to a higher vibration and also make their life more successful. So it could be quite possible that several of people here who are doing stuff like you or other things and help to help other people are actually the way shower, the light bringers to assist in this at the moment very tumultuous times here on planet Earth.
Well, Hans, I hope I can do something in that sense and help if I can help if I can help even one person in some sense, I would be happy. But I I
Mhm.
tend to agree with you in your previous statements. Sometimes I wake up and I feel I'm not, sometimes I feel like a very flawed individual and I have to constantly, well, not constantly, but I do check myself a lot because I want to be I have an image of myself that I want to try and live up to. And anyways, so
Yeah.
Hans, just I'm gonna another few questions. What I'm looking at the time there. What is death, Hans? What is the nature of death? Should we be afraid of death? What is does it even exist? Is there such a thing as death?
Well, the question is good. Of course, death does not exist because we are all eternal beings. None of us can die. Our souls are created, spirit beings are created for eternity. So there is no way of dying. It's only a transition. We just basically leave our physical body behind, which we have taken on for a very short period of 24,000 hours as an average lifetime. It's a very short incarnation we're having. We think this life is so important, it's so big. No, it's a tiny little, just jumping into incarnation, getting out of it from the spiritual perspective where time is perceived very differently. So we are coming here for a very short time. We come with nothing, we leave with nothing. Also, a reason why accumulate all that stuff when we have to leave it all behind. So, and the main reason, of course, is to undo our karma for most of us, to undo our karma, which we have created over lifetime, and to all because here on planet Earth we can experience, we can do something about it, ask for forgiveness, etc., make amends, which is more difficult in the spiritual world. So when our time comes here of like death, everybody dies right on time, as Byron Katie always says. So there are no accidents. Even if it's a car accident, it's no accident. That was the time of our death. If we die with 6 months, 6 days, 6 hours, or 60 years, it doesn't matter. A lifetime is not measured by how long it is. It's just only for the purpose. So a baby dying very shortly can have a major impact on the parents who may be very, how should I say, struck by this experience of having their child dying and so on. There may be something important, or they may only experience for a few hours life here on earth for the karmic reason, and that's enough. So life on earth is difficult. As I said earlier, the early Christian realized that, and death was something they celebrated, and they saw it as something positive. So basically, it happens that the soul, which is in our body, leaves the body, and it can be a very slow process of days and weeks, and it can be an instant one, like in an accident. And slowly the soul removes itself from the body. And the death only takes place when the silver cord, which connects to the body, is cut. The silver cord keeps the soul together and the soul and the body together, because in our dream state, we also leave our physical body. And then we go into the dream worlds. And then we still stay connected with the silver cord. And so early in the morning when we awake, we are going back into our body because the silver cord is there. Once the silver cord is cut, the soul is totally separated. But, and here is the important thing, it takes sometimes a long time. A soul may not want to die. Maybe many souls are afraid of dying, and they cling onto the body and cling. I don't want to die. I don't want to die, and they stay basically longer than they need to. And the medical world may see this body as dead because in our new definition of death, it means that if there is no more brain activity, the medical world declares that body as dead. But it's not true. The soul is still connected to the body. And we know from Dr. Alexander, even Alexander, who was a neuroscientist, know that even after a week being in a coma, he still came back. So the soul is still connected. But why do I mention it? Because the moment the medical world now declares, it used to be always if a person stops breathing and there is no heartbeat. That was the traditional and the true moment when we can say this person is dead or has moved into the spiritual world, to be correct. But as long as there's a heartbeat and breathing, the soul is still connected. But that is a moment when they do the organ transplants and they rip open the body and the soul is still connected and they harvest everything. The soul experiences all the pain of the body. This is the most horrible thing in the organ transplantation. And the people and the spiritual world, just this weekend, the spiritual world spoke to us and it says, oh, the doctor who commits organ transplant is committing murder. Let's be very clear. It is murder. He is killing a living human being. Because as I said earlier, the laws have changed in the 60s. Until that time, it was breathing and heartbeat stop. But then, because they needed a live body to transplant a live organ to another body, they decided, oh, let's just declare the person dead when there is no more brain activity. So that is something we consider. I made a whole video on organ transplantation, how horrible it is and why it is, etc. And again, I don't want anybody who feels that they are fine with it. It's okay. I am not here to convince anybody, but the spiritual world makes it very, very clear. Do not get involved into this. When your time is up here, because your lung, your heart, etc., has given up, just accept more, learn to accept death even if you're a young person, and young person can do it often much better than older people because they're too stuck to their way of life. Um, Move on because the time here is over. So learn rather that than clinging on life and waiting for an organ transplantation, for an organ transplant from another person who will still be alive when this organ is taken out of them. It's a gruesome, awful thing. Anyway, we will just go further. The spirit then, once the soul is the silver cord is cut, will continue breathing in a different rhythm and is now on the other side, the spiritual world. Very often they stay close to the body, say goodbye to this wonderful vehicle which they have served them for so long time. And they also are present very often for family members are now with a around dying person. They can hear and perceive every thought and every word spoken about them right now. So let's be always aware when we are in such a situation that the soul is very often still hanging around and gets everything once we are talking there. And then they're slowly guided if they are lived a relatively positive life and they are pulled by the light into the spheres where they will then continue their evolution. It can also be, if it's a very negative person, as we have said earlier, somebody who has really a lot of crimes, with killing and murder, they will be drastically pulled into the negative astral worlds. Or the soul can also decide, I just love this world too much, I identify. Now, the other thing is, a lot of souls are not even aware that they're dead. That is part of the reason why I make my videos, etc. As you probably read about my father who had died and came back after 5 years, spoke through a medium to me and says, would I please tell people about the death process and all my spiritual teachings, because he is working on the receiving side of souls that have died. And he sees that so many souls are confused. They don't know what's happening now. They don't even are aware that they are dead. They still identify with their old roles and continue their life. The most wonderful movie on this, everybody remembers, is The Sixth Sense. The
Mhm.
Sixth Sense is an absolute accurate movie in every way. So a soul may not be even aware and continues their own life. It just only is struck by the fact that nobody speaks to them and basically ignores them. And over time, they hopefully may wake up. But everybody will be after death attracted to the sphere where they belong. And also something to remember, I think, that first of all, the people who are surviving the death, who are the family members, I think it's important to remember, first of all, the person is not dead. We have to know that the person continues. And for the most part, the soul is fine. It's also taken care of by former relatives and friends who just usually welcome them and lead them on, or by spirit beings. So they are fine. And they are also, in most cases, free of the suffering of the physical bodies. If there are major illnesses and so on, they are free of it because they no longer have the body, but they may have to go to a period of convalescence where they are sort of in a home for a while until the soul is totally restored, because some of these conditions, health conditions here on earth, can be so painful that the soul has taken major sufferings from it and it needs to heal. So life continues on the other side. Death is not eternal. It is not real. Everybody continues. And have I something not mentioned?
No, that's very insightful. I guess when something that what I'd be thinking was, well, of course, when you die, you're going to know you're dead. But then again, when you're dreaming, sometimes when you're dreaming, and in fact, most of the time when you're dreaming, you don't even know you're conscious of the dream, but you don't know you're dreaming. When you're in a dream, it seems completely real.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go into death, you can see how some people, when they're on that side, they will just take it for reality. Maybe their lives, this life will seem like the dream, or if they're even conscious of it. You said something interesting earlier on when you said that when you die and go over onto the next dimension, that you breathe in a different way. That would suggest that the reality over there, the dimension over there, is just as real as this one in a sense. What do you mean by that? That you're going to be breathing in a different way? What kind of body do you have over there? Is it a body like we have here, or is it a sort of an electric body? What's the nature of the body over there?
It's an ethereal, it's a spiritual body. It does not have the lungs, so we don't need the air as such, but the breath will continue because everything in life breathes, because everything is pulsating God's energy. And so what I'm talking about is God's energy pulsating through us. And we will continue doing that on the other side. So God energy, because even the breath here, which we take on this planet, it is the breath of God. Every time we breathe in, we are breathing in the breath of God. And that will continue on the other side as well. So we will breathe as well, but we do not have a physical body like this. We have a spiritual body, which will be very much in accordance to our vibration. We can, and I think he just shows, for instance, let me just find a picture here,
Hmm.
um, a typical picture of some of these, what can happen. Because basically we are meeting ourselves there, and some of these souls can be, oh gosh, now of course I can't find it. Um, we will, our experience, the way we look, this is our
Hmm.
expression of our soul. These are sort of some people from the lower astral spheres.
Wow.
We have a vibration, an apparent vibration, which goes in line with our soul vibration. And the
Hmm.
other thing we'd like to remember, if we have got major vices, something which really we live for,
Hmm.
these don't disappear with death. We still have that craving. And we also have the opinions and the views and the addictions, whatever it is we have followed here in this world on the other side, but we no longer have the physical body. That's why I said earlier, some of these souls go back to earth and jump and find human beings through whom they can live and continue their addictions. So it's very helpful to let go of the addictions before you die. And
Hmm.
also the beliefs we are having. Now, somebody is a dumb person dying dumb, he is also dumb on the other side. So if anybody intends, I want to, with some medium, connect with grandfather who died and get some advice. If your grandfather wasn't smart, don't ask him, don't connect. So we will not necessarily become more clever but through the fear of death. We will have our personalities, our negative personalities, to a large degree still with us. We still have our, as I shown in these pictures, these are negative entities, these are negative personalities. Well, they are still with us. So it behooves us to let go as much as we can of all the negative patterns in our thought pattern, behavior pattern, speaking pattern, in every way, because they continue with us. And so I'm saying we're also not becoming smarter only because we are dying,
Hmm.
because we have moved into the spiritual world. Let's put it that way.
Is there a difference between the intelligence and the intellect? Is there a difference,
A very big one, a very big one. I have a video on that one, and very simple makes it for the intellect was given to us is basically an ego-driven thing. I'm
Mhm.
using my intellect to show off how smart I am. I'm trying to impress you. I try to use my intellect to buy a better car, better house, get a better job, get a better promotion. I'm using to be very, very smart, 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 and I invent many things for like chemicals to save the earth or whatever, to fertilizer, etc., or atom bombs. So we
Mhm.
use all our intellect to create stuff which is not intelligence.
Mhm.
We think we are very clever. For instance, we are doing all these wonderful medicines which we have invented here and through our intellect. We use
Mhm.
our intellect and use medicine to help a lot of people. And truly enough, we have helped millions of people in very difficult illnesses. But intelligence says no. Intelligence says look at the cause of illness. Illness is nothing but a result of karma. Don't do, speak, and act any negative. You have no illness. You don't need all that stuff, this medicine. The same with hunger. We try to do fertilizers. We try to do a lot of artificial things. We're basically killing the soils with all the stuff just to grow food and so on, to feed the people and so on. And in this way, we do a lot of destruction. Again, that's intellect. Intelligence says hunger as well is nothing but karma. Can you do something about your karma? You don't need to be hungry. We don't have all the negative condition which our intellect tries to find a solution. And the intellect always finds a solution which costs money.
Hmm.
It's a money-making thing. Pills, fertilizers, etc. You name it. Atom bombs, etc. It's money. Intelligence is always free because
Hmm.
God is intelligence. God is ingenious intelligence, Gabriele says over and over again. What does it mean? It means God has no secrets from his children. It's all very simple. What I've explained with many words to you, because I'm not a teacher, I'm just only a writer and illustrator, um, is very simple to understand. When you see this whole picture, it's very clear. And I think that partly when you were attracted or when you liked my videos is because each of these videos shows this simplicity behind it. It is not complicated. The whole thing is very clear. It's very clear, and Christ said it. It's just only the Sermon on the Mount. Love your enemies, do good to those who harm you, forgive. Forgiveness, forgiveness, and don't do any harm. All the Ten Commandments. Don't cheat, don't lie, and don't screw the wife of your neighbor. I mean, it is so simple in a way,
Yeah, yeah.
but we are not following it. But the
Hmm.
answers, the solutions to all our problems are simple and they're not coming from our intellect. Our intellect is misguiding us.
Hmm. Hans, I'm going to ask you just one more question. Well, two questions. I'm curious. Going back to what you were saying earlier on about the cord and that is connected to your body when you die. At the moment, I'm trying to figure out that, when the day comes when I pass on, should I get buried or should I get cremated? What should I do? Now, what happens to somebody who gets cremated and they really haven't left the body and that cord is still stuck to the body? It doesn't seem very, inviting. It doesn't seem like a sensible thing to do. Somebody who gets like here where my neighbor died 2 weeks ago, and he was cremated the next day. He was cremated the next day. Now, what about that guy? Like he was 92. Maybe he has a very hard time leaving the body. What about him if he's been put into a box and he's about to be incinerated?
That's the 2 point. Again, it's largely our religions, the Hebrew religion, which insists that they should be buried within 24 hours. Um, but it all depends on our own understanding of spirituality. If I understand that death is merely the end of this phase and I continue on the other side, I will not cling to the body and I can easily leave the body behind. And whatever the people, my family wants to do with the body, create or them, it's up to them. I have no connection with them. However, if I do not know anything about spirituality, if I do not believe that life continues after death, and I see my body there and I cling, it's the only identity I have, I cling to it, yes, and that body goes into the fire or into the earth, it can be painful. It can be very, very painful. My suggestion for anybody, if we do not know something, whether the person was believing in life after death, I would always say keep them for a few days in storage, in frozen storage, and then bury them. That's what it says. But you can easily also cremate a person if this person is aware of spirituality. There is no harm. So cremation is fine if the person is aware that life continues because he will not cling onto the body and the earth and its people. Of course, we must understand that they won't bury him. I don't think they do that, where they wait till there is no more heartbeat and breathing before somebody is put into a box. I haven't really explored that in detail, but
I hope
I
so.
I hope so. I hope so. I think the morticians are aware of that one. The morticians are more smarter. Oops, today this so. Can
Yeah,
you believe it?
I one of the writers I like is William Burroughs, and he said that one of his wishes was that when he died, that they would leave his body. Don't touch his body, just leave his body for 3 or 4 days. So, I think he was a I don't know what religion he practiced, if he practiced one. But his wish was that when he died, that they just left his body alone for 3 or 4 days, because he wanted his spirit to have enough time to detach from the body. And he thought that if you go interfering with his body, it could perturb him from doing that, from leaving his body.
The
Uh,
old idea of having a wake for a few days, like a lot of religion have, makes a lot of sense.
mhm.
To let the body firstly rest before you bury it or burn it. Yeah, I would say that that's something absolutely makes sense, because we do not know exactly, or very few people know, what is the personal belief of the person who has died regarding to spirituality.
Mhm. Last question, Hans, about prayer and meditation. What do you suggest? What is prayer? Is it the same as meditation? How should one meditate? How should one pray? How should one pray? How should one connect to the higher reality, to God, to Jesus, to whatever your idea of your higher power is?
Well, there are many different ways how we can do this. Meditation is largely to really calm our mind and come to that inner deep peace where we come maybe be able, not that we should wait for any information or any images which may come up, but they could come up. It can be being open to divinity communicating with us versus the other way around. Meditation really can calm our mind, or having a guided meditation, which also can really bring us into a higher kind of vibration. I've got several meditations in my videos where, well, it's a guided meditation where you just sort of lift yourself up from the day-to-day mess we have surrounded with negativity. That is very helpful. We can also come into a deep, quiet meditation where we open ourselves up to divinity, not only necessarily speaking to us, but also flowing through us. And like in a prayer, let that energy which is in us, our hearts, our Christ spark, God spark, let it flow through us and go it out into the world to the to the beings who can use that energy without any direction, because we must always respect the free will of other people. But we can send it out in a form of blessings to another human being or group of human beings, so that they may do whatever is lawfully, and I mean it divine lawfully, in the with the will of God. So we can send energy to other people. We can also fill ourselves with that energy and use that energy, particularly in cases of illnesses where we connect with the Christ spark in ourselves, communicate in us. And for me, prayers is always speaking with divinity, speaking with Christ, speaking with God. We can do this in thought, but very, very helpful. I think I personally feel also do it loud throughout the day, whatever is, oh, this is beautiful. Thank you very much. Being grateful, 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 gratefulness is number one way to come to divinity, or get yourself into divinity. Divinity is always with us, but we are not connected to divinity unless we are in a more grateful, open kind of frame of mind. So gratefulness, I think, is a wonderful way to really realize all the gifts that are given to us. Every breath we are taking, as I said, is the breath of God, is a gift. And when we become deeply, deeply grateful, I think Brother Style Ross said, um, happiness is, gratefulness is happiness. And we become happy because we are grateful. It's not the other way around. So happiness can by feeling this gratefulness. And the prayer itself, as I said, for me, it's always communicating, getting into a quiet, quiet space and sharing with God, divinity, Christ, what is it that moves you at the moment? They already know that. But it's for us important to verbalize it in our mind or with words. Because the moment we speak, we are slowing down our thought process. And then we can listen to what we are actually saying. What are we actually really meaning? So we can find answers in what we say, on what we ask for. So for prayers aloud is, of course, it shouldn't be a long, lengthy prayer, whatever. A prayer can be only a few seconds, a few minutes. What is this? Thank you, Lord, is all required, because it's sort of one of the most important words. Thank you is
Mhm.
just the word thank you, and to put ourselves into that frame of mind. So prayer is not depending how long it is. It just comes from the heart. Honest asking, honest communicating, honest sharing of our feelings with divinity, and being open to the guidance which comes from divinity, because we are surrounded continuously by God vibration, by God who is everywhere, who is omnipresent. We also always connected to our guardian spirit and the Christ in us. So we have got this whole powerful vibrations, which are nothing, want nothing else than to help us to get out of this awful life here on this planet Earth, with difficult life, and help us to get out here to make the best out of our classrooms. I've got a video on the magnificent, the amazing Earth School, which explains it, why we are here in Earth School. Get out of it, be successful, and move on to a higher sphere. It is not the will of divinity for us to incarnate over and over again. We can be done with it in this lifetime. We can work it out that we don't have to come back for another lifetime. And then we continue our evolution, our spiritual evolution up in the spiritual world, which is much easier.
Mhm. Fantastic. Yeah, I'm actually reading Gabriella's book on prayer now, and she gets into just exactly what you were saying. She also mentions empathy when you're praying for somebody to feel that empathy and to get it instead of repeating prayers like repetition, or they don't work. It's
Right.
actually to get into the empathy, or to empathize with that person you're praying for, instead of just rhyming off words that don't reach God, you know.
Right.
Um, Hans, thank you so much for your time and for your insights. I really enjoyed listening to you. Where can people find you? Where can people find your stuff? If you want to share that.
Well, the best way to go onto YouTube and just punch in my name, Hans Wilhelm, Hans H-A-N-S, Wilhelm is W-I-L-H-E-L-M, and you will find my channel there on very easily. You can also go to my website, which is called lifeexplained.com, where the same videos are, just in a different order and a different quality. And also on that website, I explain why I do them, where that comes from, etc., etc. There's more information, the source of this energy, because none of this material comes out from me. It is only shared material which I have explored over the years, and it comes largely through Gabriele for the last 40 years since I've been following her, and having done many, many other spiritual paths before that, and finding this path of such a profound depth and detail like I've never seen before. And the most beautiful thing, it is very clear, and as you have read in the book by her, it's easy to understand. God is in genius simplicity, and that convinces me tremendously that I can really grasp it fully, understand it fully, and share it.
Hans, thank you very much, and you have a great day. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you.